The last interspecies feast had been, in official council records, a diplomatic catastrophe. The Velkan ambassador nearly fainted when exposed to garlic. The crystalline Zeldarians mistook chili peppers for jewelry and wore them to the negotiation table, where they promptly dissolved. And the humans, led by a particularly enthusiastic chef from New Orleans, had accidentally fed a roomful of gaseous larivi, a batch of beignets dusted with cinnamon, setting off a sneeze chain reaction that shut down 3 spaceports. So, when the Galactic Council proposed a friendly cooking show to foster intercultural understanding, everyone prayed it would go better. Elliot Brooks, owner of a small fusion restaurant in Boston, was as surprised as anyone to be invited. One moment he was perfecting a kimchi taco recipe, the next he was standing on a shimmering platform orbiting a blue giant, facing down a dozen alien chefs who radiated everything from plasma energy to spores. Human Representative Elliot Brooks announced a spherical drone hovering above the stage. "Please approach your station." Elliot took a deep breath and approached. The cooking arena looked like a sci-fi fevered dream. Hovering counters, self-heating pans, and walls that shimmered to match the mood of the audience. Around him, alien contestants floated, slithered, or perched at their own stations. The competition was being broadcast live to over 200 systems, and, judging by the council members in the VIP balcony, the entire diplomatic fate of Earth was now resting on Elliot's ability to cook something edible. No pressure. "Welcome to the Intergalactic Culinary Exhibition," boomed the announcer, a 3-headed Lavrix judge with a booming voice and 6 hands. "Today's theme, comfort food." Elliot grinned. Comfort food he could do. He unloaded his ingredients. Fresh dough for pizza, a wheel of blue cheese, cans of surströmming, the infamous Swedish fermented fish, and, most controversially, a large, spiky durian. The aliens watched, fascinated and slightly alarmed, as Elliot cracked open the durian. A wave of pungent odor swept across the stage. The contestant next to him, a gelatinous orolith chef named Miv, wobbled in alarm. "Is that meant for consumption or chemical warfare?" Elliot laughed. "It's a fruit. Strong smell, amazing flavor, trust me." Miv rippled nervously, but stayed in its lane, assembling a dish of glowing fungal strands that swirled hypnotically in a levitating bowl. As the timer counted down, Elliot moved efficiently. Pizza dough stretched, blue cheese crumbled, durian flesh scooped into a custard base. When he opened the can of surström, though, the arena collectively recoiled. A crystalline judge dropped his clipboard. A floating, vaporous chef screamed and retreated behind its station. Even the Lavrix announcer gagged delicately. Elliot winced. Yeah, that one's an acquired taste. Despite the chaos, Elliot forged ahead. He baked a blue cheese and pear pizza, whipped up a durian parfait, and carefully plated the surströmming with potatoes and thin bread, just like his Swedish grandmother had taught him. When the tasting began, the room braced itself. First up, Miv presented his glowing fungi. Elliot took a bite, eyebrows lifting in delight at the tangy, fizzy sensation. "That's incredible," he said around a mouthful. The other human judges, patched in remotely, alternately coughed, gagged, or fell in love, depending on their palate. Next came Elliot's turn. The Lavrix announcer approached cautiously, splitting one head to address the crowd, while another cautiously sniffed the dishes. The blue cheese pizza was met with mixed reactions. The crystalline judge emitted a series of delighted chimes, while the vapor chef melted slightly in approval. The oroliths, however, recoiled from the aroma. The durian parfait nearly caused a diplomatic incident. Several contestants slapped protective masks over their respiratory openings. One Zelrin fainted into a bowl of spice vapor. Yet when the Lavric judge took a spoonful, his 3 heads paused, then slowly smiled in unison. "Unexpected," he declared, "and marvelous." Elliot's grin widened. Then came the surströmming. The can's aroma hit the judges like a plasma blast. 2 staggered backward. One tiny aquatic chef leapt into a water tank, splashing furiously. But the gelatinous Miv hesitantly reached out a tendril, tasted a speck, and pulsed with flickering color. Salty! Complex! Magnificent! Elliot let out a laugh of pure relief. As the show went on, something remarkable happened. While aliens struggled to survive the human foods, Elliot was thriving. He devoured chewy bark spirals from the lavrix, downed a spoonful of burning frost pollen from the glaciari without blinking, and gleefully sampled a fermented cloud stew from the auroliths, grinning as the vapor tickled his tongue. Word spread fast. The human contestant was fearless. Backstage, aliens crowded around Elliot, fascinated. They watched in awe as he whipped up spontaneous snacks, tossing together fusion bites using alien spices and earth techniques. He showed a Zelrian chef how to temper chocolate with plasma coils. He taught a lavrix how to knead dough. He swapped spice blends with a tentacled Velkan, who offered him a glowing root in exchange. Miv floated beside him, shimmering. Your species, you are culinary explorers. Elliot laughed, wiping flour off his hands. Yeah, we eat weird stuff. As the first day ended, the judges deliberated. The lavrix announcer raised his many arms. Though the human has caused significant olfactory trauma, he declared, his bravery and curiosity exemplify the spirit of this competition. Elliot beamed as the crowd erupted in a chorus of hisses, chimes, pulses, and applause. Afterward, as the contestants mingled, Elliot found himself surrounded by aliens offering bites of strange, wonderful dishes. He leaned against the counter, eyes bright. You know, he said softly, this might just work. The galactic cooking show had survived its first day, and the universe would never eat the same way again. The next morning, Elliot Brooks stood on the viewing deck, staring out at the vast sweep of stars. He sipped an alien tea that smelled faintly of cinnamon and ozone, watching as the other contestants floated or glided past on their way to the arena. He had survived day one. More than survived, really. His human palate, the one his friends had always teased for being reckless, had made him a star among creatures who thought durian was a weapon and blue cheese a biochemical hazard. Elliot Brooks, came a familiar voice. He turned to see Miv, the gelatinous aurolith chef, pulsing with bright yellow light. Good morning, Miv. I bring a gift, Miv said, extending a tendril. In it was a small vial of sparkling powder. Glitter leaf pollen, Miv explained. Flavor enhancer, caution, explosive when heated. Elliot laughed. Thanks, Miv. I'll keep that in mind. The second day's challenge was fusion cuisine. The announcer, the towering lavrix with 3 heads and 6 arms, beamed down at them from the hovering stage. Contestants, he boomed, combine an ingredient from your world with one from another chef's home planet. Surprise us. Elliot felt his heart race. He scanned his station, stocked with fresh earth ingredients, lemongrass, garlic, wild mushrooms, and a secret stash of peanut butter. But he needed an alien ingredient. Miv floated over. Shall we collaborate? Elliot grinned. You're on. Within minutes, they had set up a trade. Miv handed over a cluster of glowing fungal tendrils, while Elliot offered up a jar of peanut butter. Miv pulsed thoughtfully, then darted off to his own station. Elliot set to work. He seared mushrooms with garlic, folded in the fungal strands, and added a drizzle of lemon peanut sauce. As the aroma filled the air, he heard several aliens make startled noises, though whether from excitement or panic he wasn't sure. Nearby, a crystalline Zelrian named Veer was attempting to coat a lattice of sugar with chili oil, while a Velkan chef struggled to fold dough with 6 tentacles. As the countdown ended, the judges floated in, ready to taste. The lavrix took a cautious bite of Elliot's dish. 3 heads froze, then slowly smiled. Unexpected harmony, the judge intoned. The crystalline judge chimed with delight. Miv approached, offering a bowl of peanut butter-dusted fungi. Elliot popped one in his mouth and grinned, Perfect balance, Miv. Backstage, friendships blossomed. Elliot taught Veer how to temper chocolate for delicate sugar sculptures. Veer showed Elliot how to slice crystal fruit with sonic blades. A Velkan chef demonstrated how to ferment root bulbs using sound vibrations, while Elliot introduced the wonders of Earth's slow braise. And the aliens? They became obsessed with peanut butter. Word spread through the arena. By the end of the day, half the contestants had approached Elliot asking for samples, recipes, or advice on blending it into their dishes. One oralith even tried to inject it into a gelatinous sculpture, resulting in a minor explosion that required 3 drones to clean up. Elliot laughed so hard he nearly cried. That night, the contestants gathered for an informal meal. Dishes lined the tables, steaming bowls of alien stews, glowing pastries, Earth-style fried rice, and Miv's peanut butter fungi. Elliot watched with quiet amazement as chefs from across the galaxy swapped bites and stories. Veer raised a crystalline glass. "To shared chaos," she said. Elliot clinked his glass against hers, and to the best kind of accidents. The next morning brought the wildcard round, a mystery box challenge. Elliot lifted the shimmering lid to reveal a live, squirming orb that resembled a cross between a sea urchin and a peach. Next to it was a pouch of Earth coffee beans. He blinked. Well, all right. As the timer started, chaos erupted. The Zelrians debated whether to freeze or sear their orbs. A Velkan shrieked when his orb jumped off the table. Miv calmly sang to his orb, which promptly fell asleep. Elliot cracked open the orb, found a custard-like interior, and grinned. "Coffee, custard," he murmured, with an intensity that surprised even himself. Elliot whipped cream, simmered coffee, and folded the alien custard into a light, airy mousse. By the end, his station was a controlled disaster zone, but the dish gleamed on the plate. Judges approached. The Lavrix took a bite and let out a booming laugh. Veer's crystals turned pink with excitement. Miv tasted it, pulsing with delight. As the round ended, Elliot leaned back against his station, sweat on his forehead, heart pounding. Around him, aliens chatted, swapped samples, and gestured enthusiastically. Somewhere along the way, this had stopped feeling like a competition. It felt like a festival. Back in his quarters that night, Elliot gazed out the window at the stars. His communicator pinged softly. A message from Miv. "We shall trade more recipes tomorrow." Elliot smiled, feeling an unfamiliar warmth spread through his chest. Maybe, just maybe, the universe was learning something beautiful. The third morning on the galactic culinary stage arrived with a new challenge and a palpable buzz in the air. News had spread across the systems. The human, Elliot Brooks, was shaking up the galaxy's most prestigious food event with his bizarre, fearless cooking. Elliot stepped onto the glowing arena floor, feeling more confident but just as curious as ever. The Lavrix announcer raised 6 arms dramatically. "Today's theme," he intoned, "is street food." Round Elliot, the alien chefs reacted with either confusion or pure excitement. Some species didn't even have streets, much less street food, but the challenge intrigued them all. Elliot cracked his knuckles and grinned. "Let's make tacos," he muttered. He raided his ingredient bin. Masa flour, corn, avocados, pickled onions, and beef short rib. He glanced over at Miv, who was molding a doughy sphere from shimmering algae, and Veer, the crystalline chef, who worked a vat of molten sugar into delicate strands. Elliot darted over to Veer's station. "Hey Veer, can I borrow some of that chili syrup you made yesterday?" Veer blinked, her crystal facets sparkling. "Only if you teach me how to pickle onions." "Deal." Back at his station, Elliot worked fast, slow braising the beef in alien rootstock he'd borrowed from a Velkan chef, pressing fresh tortillas, and layering the tacos with sharp pickles, creamy avocado, and a drizzle of Veer's chili syrup. He topped it all with crumbled blue cheese for a punch of funk. As the smell of sizzling tacos filled the arena, heads turned. The Lavrix announcer paused in his narration, nostrils flaring. "Judges," Elliot called playfully, "you're going to want seconds." Meanwhile, the aliens threw themselves into their own versions of street food. Meave crafted handheld gelatin wraps filled with glowing fungi and dusted in peanut powder, his newest obsession. A towering Velkin skewered small, marinated insects and roasted them over sonic waves. Veer spun sugar into savory crisps laced with spice. When tasting time arrived, the panel approached with wary anticipation. The Lavrix took a bite of Elliot's taco and closed his three eyes, humming in triplicate. Veer's sugar crisps shattered with a satisfying crunch under their teeth. Miv's wraps practically melted in the judges' mouths. For the first time since the show began, there was no laughter, no chaos, no shrieks of disgust or panic. There was just awe. After the round, the chefs gathered for the post-show celebration. The once fussy Zelrian chefs were now elbow-deep in peanut butter jars, and the normally reserved Velkin had learned to chant "Taco Night" with a surprising level of enthusiasm. Elliot wandered through the crowd, plate in hand, sampling alien kebabs and cloud-dusted dumplings. He sat beside Miv, who was beaming softly. "You know, Miv," Elliot said between bites, "I think this peanut butter thing is going to take off across the galaxy." Miv pulsed with a laugh. "Your species' legacy may be smell, chaos, and nut paste." Elliot raised his glass. "I'll take that." Later that evening, the Lavrix announcer approached the contestants in private. "There's been a development," he said, folding his 6 arms. "The audience response has been unprecedented. Tomorrow's finale will be broadcast across all council systems." Elliot felt his stomach twist, half nerves, half excitement. When he returned to his quarters, he opened his communicator. Messages poured in from Earth, chefs wishing him luck, his sister sending a thumbs-up selfie, his restaurant staff cheering from the kitchen, and his mother, who simply wrote, "Don't forget your roots, and please don't set anything on fire." Elliot laughed softly, leaning back against his bunk. He thought of the friendships he had built, the flavors he had tasted, the risks he had taken. He thought of how, just days ago, these chefs had looked at him like a dangerous curiosity, and now they swapped recipes, offered bites, and laughed over ruined test batches together. As he drifted to sleep under a canopy of unfamiliar stars, Elliot knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow was going to be unforgettable. The final morning arrived with a kind of electric energy that buzzed through the entire station. From the moment Elliot Brooks woke, he could feel it in the floor panels, hear it in the excited voices outside his quarters, and taste it in the sharp tang of alien breakfast tea delivered to his room. As he pulled on his apron, Elliot caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror. Eyes bright, a few flour smudges still on his shirt from late-night prep, and the unmistakable look of a man standing at the edge of something extraordinary. The arena was transformed. Where once it had been a sleek, glowing chamber, today it pulsed with the colors of every species represented in the contest. Flags and holograms shimmered overhead, broadcasting the event across the galaxy. Rows of alien diplomats and citizens crowded the balconies, their faces alight with anticipation. Elliot took his place at his station. On his left, Miv rippled with a nervous glow. On his right, Veer polished a set of gleaming crystal tools. Across the floor, the Lavrix announcer raised his many arms, his 3 heads speaking as one. "Today, you will prepare a dish that represents your home." Simple words, Elliot thought, but loaded with meaning. He closed his eyes for a moment and breathed in. What was home? For Elliot, it was Sunday mornings at his grandmother's house, the smell of butter and sugar in the air. It was the tang of barbecue on summer afternoons, the crunch of fried chicken from a roadside shack, the warmth of homemade soup when you were sick. And now, maybe, it was also the memory of a gelatinous friend offering him glowing mushrooms, or a crystalline chef handing him spice-dusted fruit with a grin. Elliot smiled and got to work. He began with cornbread, earthy and slightly sweet, folding in just a touch of Miv's glitter leaf powder for a pop of color. He braised short ribs in a rich sauce, adding a subtle spice from Veer's chili crystals. On the side, collard greens sautéed with alien root vegetables shimmered faintly, thanks to a Velkin glaze. And for dessert, Elliot built a classic earth apple pie. But tucked within the lattice crust were slivers of azelri and citrus that made the filling sing. Around the arena, alien chefs worked furiously. Miv crafted shimmering dumplings that pulsed like tiny stars. Veer assembled a sugar sculpture that wove around a dish of frozen custard. The Velkin chef roasted an enormous skewer of marinated protein, slicing it thin with The final countdown echoed through the arena. 5. Elliot drizzled the last spoonful of glaze. 4. Miv arranged his dumplings in a delicate spiral. 3. Veer balanced her sculpture over a cloud of vapor. 2. Elliot took a deep breath and stepped back. 1. The Laverick's judge rang a chime. The tasting began. One by one, the judges approached each station. They sampled, murmured, took notes. When they reached Elliot, the Lavericks paused, 3 heads bending to examine the plate. First, a bite of cornbread. The Lavericks blinked in surprise at the subtle sparkle of the glitter leaf. Next, the short ribs. The crystalline judge let out a delighted chime, while the Aurolith judge's body rippled with joy. Finally, the pie. The Lavericks took a bite, paused, then smiled with all 3 mouths. "Human," the announcer said warmly, "you have brought us not only a taste of Earth, but a taste of your new friends." Elliot felt his chest tighten. He glanced across the arena. Miv gave him a ripple of bright yellow. Veer tilted her crystalline head in a graceful nod. Even the Velkin chef raised his skewer in salute. As the judges finished, the Laverick's announcer raised his arms. Today, there is no single winner. Today, the winners are all of us, for discovering the joy of sharing what we love. The crowd erupted in a wave of sound, chimes, rumbles, pulses, and cheers. Elliot laughed, swept up in the moment, as Miv surged forward and wrapped a soft tendril around his wrist. "Friends," Miv said simply. Veer approached, offering a delicate sugar flower. "To remember us," the Velkin chef clapped Elliot on the shoulder, nearly knocking him over. "Taco Master," he bellowed, a wide grin splitting his face. As the night stretched on, the arena transformed into one vast feast. Chefs swapped dishes, judges danced awkwardly in zero-gravity pockets, and diplomats toasted to future exchanges. Elliot found himself crouched on the floor at one point, teaching a Zellian ambassador how to fold dumpling wrappers, while Miv carefully piped peanut sauce over a batch of glazed vegetables. At the far edge of the room, the Laverick's announcer watched it all with a satisfied expression. Elliot leaned back, a plate of dumplings balanced on his knee, watching as alien children raced past with cones of glowing cotton candy, and human diplomats traded bites of fried chicken with Laverick's elders. He thought of home, of Boston streets and night markets in Seoul, of barbecue joints in Texas and taco stands in Los Angeles, of the little fusion restaurant where this whole journey had started. And he realized something. Home wasn't a place, it was a table. And whoever you welcomed to that table, wherever you came from, became a part of it. As the crowd slowly thinned, Elliot found himself back at the window, looking out at the stars. Miv floated beside him, pulsing softly. Veer stood at his other side, crystalline fingers resting lightly on the glass. "You will return to Earth now?" Miv asked. "For a little while," Elliot said quietly, "but I'll be back." Veer smiled. "The galaxy will wait." When the final shuttle prepared to depart, Elliot turned for one last look. Across the arena, the chefs waved, a chorus of light and sound rising to fill the chamber. Elliot smiled, lifting a hand in return. As the ship drifted toward the stars, he leaned back in his seat, a container of leftover dumplings in his lap, a sugar flower tucked into his jacket pocket, and a heart fuller than he had ever imagined. The galactic cooking show had invited humans, and, against all odds, The universe was glad it had.